Hello, this is Yehna.
This is Jessie.
We are pretty excited about this episode. Excited is not quite the right word, but for the lack of better wording, excited. We wrestled through many different questions. We wanted to invite you and elaborate more on the question how to be intentional in a Christian community. So, welcome and join us at
At
the
the
table.
table.
I'm not gonna lie. After I said intentional, I kind of died inside. But it's okay. We're gonna move on. Just like wheat and trauma things. What? Just kidding.
I was gonna say intentional community.
But I
Ah,
can't think of a better word.
I feel like this really helps us get us started. This phrase that Yenna said, and I was like, "Ooh, that needs to be the title of our podcast." It's we don't need greeters, we need hosts. Ah,
Yours. Ah,
let's unpack this.
all
What does
right.
this mean, Yenna?
I think we were kind of looking at the context of a lot of church greeters and how they hold a lot of responsibility in creating the first impression of that church and bringing in people, kind of guiding them, obviously, to the service, sanctuary, and different things. But what we really wanted to kind of pinpoint when it comes to the greeters versus hosts is how many times do we feel when we enter a church and we leave one feeling very alone?
Mm,
We didn't feel invited to the space and belonging in that space. And
mm,
really thinking, oh my goodness, I don't think I fit in, or I don't think this is a church for me, or wow, they really didn't notice me. And not like in a like narcissistic way, but just thinking, is this a community I can find belonging in, essentially?
mm.
So that's kind of the thought behind that phrase. I didn't mean to like
Yeah.
post it out there, but I was like, oh shoot, okay.
No, we gotta be bold here, girl. But Yenna and I both go to similar type vibe churches because I've been to Yenna's church and Yenna went to my church.
Yes.
But they definitely have, those greeters at the front that make you feel so welcomed and invited and like they're super kind and they ask how your day's been. But that only lasts for like 10 seconds
Right.
until you're in the service and then service ends and you look around and it's like, okay, this is where
Yeah.
it counts. This is where it begins, where I can actually try to picture myself staying here or not staying here, right?
So true.
And what it comes down to is there's a lot of lack of fellowship, but
Mm.
within the fellowship, the lack of depth and vulnerability and intentionality
Hmm.
to really share what's on our hearts. For so long, Yana and I maybe have been a little bit bitter or just
a
numbed
lot of
out.
a lot of rant sessions about it, or not so much rant sessions. It's more we felt very something was wrong, we did something
Mhm.
wrong, or the flip side of it, not to expose ourselves too much or expose myself too much, it's I would almost put the blame on the church or the people who should have done that well, or quote unquote should have done that well.
Why isn't this place already set up so that I can feel that way
Yeah.
and feel like I can open up? An example that we both kind of experienced was a church that we both used to go to. People were nice, people greeted you. It was great service, great worship. But then at the end of the day, what, Yana, you were there for 6 months later and you were in a small group
No,
and
year and a half.
oh shoot, a year and a half. Wait, you explain it. You explain it better.
No, you're good. I was there for a year and then finally I was like, I need to do something. So I joined a small group. But even after that, I found myself leaving the church by myself, eating lunch by myself. I didn't have anyone checking up on me, or I didn't know who to check up on because I didn't really know anyone at the church. People who went to the church kept filing in and out. Like they would go to that church in the beginning and then they'd go find a different church. I felt very confused. I thought, at least the church I thought I needed to go to were the type where after a church service, we have fellowship around the table, eating food and talking about life, and maybe even just being, funny here and there, or even outside of the church, we grab meals or want to do something together. That's just kind of the community I grew up in. So that was what I envisioned a church should be. And to not have that, I was a little drawn aback.
Yeah, I went there for 3, 4 years and I was in a small group too, and I still felt like you said, the new person.
Mm-hmm.
Something is off about that. But we had a big turning point, which is also, like we've shared in many episodes, 2022, beginning of 2022, we just hit rock bottom. And that was just the start of our healing journey. And thankfully, this Alpha course came into our
Yes.
lives. And it's an understatement of how much anxiety we both had going to this thing and showing up. And we were going together. And yet we found every excuse not to go to this
Oh
thing.
my gosh. I said, if you don't go, I won't go. There were points where I truly, when we started driving kind of together, I think that we realized we needed to do that so we can be less scared. At first, we drove separately, and there were moments where I would truly just wait in the car to check if Jessie arrived, or if there was. I don't think there was a day. Maybe there was one day that I had to go by myself. I really was so close to just backing out of the parking spot and driving away. Oh my goodness. But anyway, but truly was a turning point in our journey.
Yeah. And the reason why it was a turning point is because we decided to quit waiting for God to send someone to us or to send a safe space for us, we decided to go.
Mm.
We needed to show up. And we were just making excuses to not show up because we were like, oh, well, we don't see this happening for us. And not gonna lie, there were many sessions where, sometimes it wasn't, the conversation maybe wasn't fruitful, or
Yeah.
nobody really talked to us during dinner, but we kept showing up. And
Mm.
just the discipline of doing that and saying yes in that small way actually left a huge significance looking back at that time for us. Yeah, would you agree?
I completely agree. It was truly, I know it sounds so stupid, but truly the bravest thing I think we did.
Yeah.
And it also was such a humbling experience to see that there were other people. Yes, there were, like Jessie said, conversations that didn't feel like it was efficient, or it wasn't really moving in the like digging deeper than I wish it was. But it was not just us showing up there. There were other people who actually had no
Mm,
faith in Christ, like
right.
showing up here. And I'm thinking, what is this motivator? What is happening? Why are you
Mm,
so hungry for something that I had all my life? What brings you here? And so, in that sense, I was so humbled by just the hunger these people had to find people who also shared the same questions they had.
mm,
Obviously, we didn't realize it then in that moment, but even just right now as we were planning this, we had that realization, wow, we had to stop waiting for someone to do what God called us to do.
mm. All we're trying to say here, y'all, is that it really starts with you seeking
Mm-hmm.
that community, with you seeking that vulnerability and intentionality. So often we're like, oh, I'm wanting something deeper. I'm wanting something more. Well, you start that.
Yeah.
You go after and have a conversation with someone and open up first. Why don't
Mm.
you try that for a change? And it's like, whew, it's uncomfortable.
It is.
Everything that we're talking about is so uncomfortable in a society where we are constantly seeking after comfortability and convenience. And it might not look exactly like you've pictured it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even the churches we go to, it is not a church that we saw ourselves going to be
No.
honest. Like, I am the minority of the minorities. I stick out like a sore thumb. Yet God is calling me. I just know He's calling me there. And I know it that He is for a reason. And it's for
Yeah.
me to practice being that person that goes.
That's so good. And even my church is very similar to Jesse's, and I do have a little bit of a comfortability in the sense that I go with my family or my siblings and other people that I kind of knew, but it's just not the church I would have gone. Actually, it's probably the type of church I would have bashed on a
Same,
long time ago because it's
same.
such a big church. They have
The
it,
lights,
the lights,
the music.
exactly, and they have the best kids program. They have people signing up on iPads, and you're just like, what the heck is this? They give you mugs as a first time person coming to church, and you're just like, what is this? But God has shattered all of that. Thank the Lord, because that was just anyway. Here I am at this church, literally weeping every Sunday because I'm so convicted. And not just by the sermon, but by the lives that are being lived within this church. Not, it's just the pastor is truly living what he preaches. every staff member is truly living what is supposed to be the vision of the church. And it's amazing to see how this church truly grew due to the fruits of their labor. It's like that this church is growing because of the blessing God has placed on this church. And like, who am I to judge that? So aside from that, it might not look, the end goal or whatever you're looking for might not be where God will lead you. But what's so important is that you don't look at it and go, oh, that's not for me, and then dip out. Yes, there's a time where God might make you move in a different direction, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about how to stay consistent within this community, because God will move regardless of who you are or what you do or what you don't do.
Doesn't matter how we show up. He's got his plan and his will be done. There was the quote that my pastor said, it's like God is not limited by our limitations. And I was like, whoosh, you're right. Complaining about lack of depth. Well, I better start that depth. He's gonna move anyway. He's like, I want you to be a part of that.
So true.
I want you to join me on it. Don't be limited by your limitations.
It's so true. We're always looking for what we deem as the perfect church. Perfect sermon, perfect music, perfect whatever. And I don't mean like flashy perfect. I just mean like within our ideals of what a good church should look like. And I remember I don't remember where I heard this and who said this, but I remember hearing this, and truly just every pride I had about churches or like resentment towards churches was completely shattered with this phrase. It's along the lines of, if you want to see why churches are broken, look in the mirror. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
Humbled.
I was so blind up to the point when I heard that, because it was always like, church did this to me, church did that to me. And it was always something was wrong. Duh, it consists of broken people, yehna. God called the broken, and he uses the broken, and he uses us to bring redemption because he is the redeemer. This is not about perfection, yehna Kim.
Come on.
How dare I try to find my ideal perfection and judge someone else if they don't fit what I want, bro?
Who do you think you are?
Legit. And so kind of going back to the community and the intentionality of it, yes, this is hard, but God didn't call us to do easy things, unfortunately. There are so many times in the Bible he says, oh, be strong and courageous. And there are times when he sends angels, and the angels are always saying, do not be afraid. Why? Because he knows we are scared, and he knows we have doubts, and he knows being extroverted or introverted or having social anxiety or having all these things. God loves you for who you are, regardless of those things. And he is going to challenge you to move despite those things and in spite those things. He calls us to have courage and to not be afraid, because he knows so well how broken and how afraid we are. Kind of going back to, he will move without us, because he is on the move. He's a God of just everything. He doesn't need us, but he wants us. I think that's pretty cool that he wants us. Me? Bruh.
It's like, yes, you. And to wrap it up with what we originally started off with when we said we don't need greeters, we need hosts. Well, we challenge you of, well, you can be the host. And the question that we're going to end with is, how do you choose to show up differently? Not just in your church community, but in your workspace, in your friendships, in your family. There's so many things that we aren't satisfied with or we want more of. And well, let's start with you first. Yeah, you might be in a community where that intentionality is hard to initiate. I really challenge you to press into it, because yehna and I will be trying our best to press into it in other aspects of our life. So
true. As always, these episodes are really just us convicting ourselves. Because I'm not gonna lie, just to be a little vulnerable so that we don't look like we're just trying to preach here and us have everything figured out. It's taken me 1 year since moving to college. Moving to Texas. I actually finally signed up to be like a moving asset in this church, not just a church goer. and a pew
Mm.
filler upper. I need to actually do something. Did I start yet? No, it's gonna start September 1st. But I get it. It's just so uncomfortable. You have to talk to people you don't know, and no offense, you don't really care about. I could be doing better things. For example, I'm a teacher. I could be resting right now or doing other things to plan for the next Monday. I already am so anxious about the week to come. But no, God called us to not do this alone. He called us to meet people, pray for others, and be humbled again and again to know
Mm.
God is truly the one sovereign over everything. Like Jessie said, yes, how will you show up differently in your church and your communities? Or how will you now show up if you're not already? Any last words, Jessie?
Nope, we wrapped it in a pretty bow.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening to our what vomit session of our new revelations and us essentially just feeling extremely called out and exposed. So anyways, we are on Spotify, we are on YouTube, and we actually this was not entirely inspired by it, but I will link a sermon that kind of goes along the lines of how we need to now go in the description of both YouTube and Spotify. And we are on Instagram for any further updates. Well, thank you so much for listening. Cannot wait to share more on our next episode. Until then,
Bye.
bye.